Thank you. On behalf of Perkins Thompson, my name is Dave Johnson. I'm the chair of the firm's commercial finance practice. I'm so excited to introduce Steve Weikal. Steve is the industry chair of the Real Estate Transformation Lab at MIT's Center for Real Estate and managing partner of MET Fund 2. His work focuses on how emerging technologies, particularly artificial intelligence, are reshaping how we develop, transact, and manage properties. Steve is a frequent speaker at leading industry conferences across the globe and has been quoted by outlets including USA Today, the Boston Globe, and Harvard Real Estate Review. He brings a unique blend of academic insight, investment experience, and real-world experience to today's discussion. Please join me in welcoming Steve Weikal.
I appreciate it, David. Thank you. Good morning. Nice to see everybody. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you. Where's Shelley? Where'd Shelley go? Shelley, oh, way back there. Thank you, Shelley. Appreciate your partnership in organizing the program. I'm so thrilled to be here in Portland and also to be a part of the program today. Yeah. And also to Shannon and the board for having me. Also to Keith, we met in Chicago at the Brownfields Development Conference. So Keith, thank you. And it's always a pleasure to be able to, and an honor, frankly, to be able to share the research that we do at the Real Estate Transformation Lab at MIT. So we study a number of different things around technology and how it impacts the built environment. As you might imagine, there are a lot of topics we could talk about. But of course, AI is in the headlines right now, so we'll focus on AI together. It's great to have an audience. Every part of our ecosystem, our real estate ecosystem, is here in the room. So it'll be a little bit high level to start the day off. We'll level set a little bit. Hopefully I'll present some things that are relevant to your role in the ecosystem. And I say our because I came from a development background. I'm a recovering developer, grew up in the Midwest, and then went back to graduate school. So anyway, and I'll be around today. So if you have questions, you can feel free to find me. Also, we'll make the slides available. I present a lot of material. We're going to move pretty fast. Feel free to take pictures. Feel free to take notes. But we will make it available to you afterwards so that you don't feel like you're trying to keep up with me. So that's one thing we learned at MIT is how to talk fast. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get started. Let me recap. Again, recognizing we come to this event at different points in our journey, whether it's an innovation journey or a technology journey or an AI journey. Who used a large language model this week to do something at work? Excellent. Who uses it every day? Excellent. At work, not to put a shopping list together. Okay, I mean, it's good at shopping lists. Okay, so this is very interesting to see how quickly a technology gets distributed amongst people. Because if I'd asked this question last year, in fact, 2 years, I might have gotten crickets, no hands in the air. So it's just, as we all know, it's in the media, and I have to say, and I'm gonna show you some examples, it's pretty amazing. Some of this stuff is like witchcraft. So it's impacting all points of our lives. I'll try to narrow this down a little bit and relate it to what we all do on a day-to-day basis. So, but to level set, for those of you who may be a little new to this conversation, let's remember that AI is not new. The term AI came out of a research group at Dartmouth in 1956. So this has been around 70 plus years, this idea of AI. The earlier versions of AI was really algorithmic. It was machine learning, you might have heard of that. Natural language processing and computer vision. This has happened over the generations of breakthroughs in the technology. What's different about this is the generative AI. We talk about large language models, we hear about ChatGPT and Copilot and the brand names, but these generative AI tools, this is what's different. And it's in the word. It generates text and images and music and sound in a way that was never possible because it ingests these immense amounts of data that you could not, as a human, access this data and analyze the data and come up with conclusions. So it generates And remember the algorithms, we've lived with algorithms, anybody who uses Google or goes to Amazon, those are static. That's actually code. It's this generative version that's so exciting and so powerful and maybe a little bit scary. So what just happened with this most recent version? One is we got the NVIDIA Pascal chip, but remember, the NVIDIA Pascal chip came out in 2016. So yes, the last 24 months has been a lot of hype around this, but since 2016, that's 10 years ago, that this has been percolating. And then ChatGPT 1, 2018. So, right? So, I mean, it's really been around, but we hear a lot of the hype. But we have cleaner data refining methods, and these LLMs, the generative AI analyzes complex data sets. It discerns the patterns that are out there, and then it makes, I hesitate to use the word predictions, but that's kind of what's going on. So that's what, quote unquote, just happened. So what does this mean? Well, there's different thinking about this. One is David Autor at MIT, a colleague over in the Sloan School. Scarce expertise becomes more abundant. He says that the expertise monopoly has been broken, meaning it's not only the experts anymore, because all of you now are becoming experts in whatever you do at a level that was never possible before. I will say that the research at MIT, sometimes these very smart Nobel Prize winners, the research conflicts. They're not fully in agreement, but it does lift the performance of lower skilled workers, but there's also some research showing that the superstars might become even more superstar because of these tools. Time will tell. KP Reddy, anybody follow KP Reddy? He's a construction guy. Great newsletters every day talking about this. He comes from a venture capital company called Shadow Ventures, which is focused on construction. So any of you who are in construction, but it's relevant to our entire industry. KP says that the AI does not merely provide the information, it provides interpretation. That's new. It used to be we would just gather the data and then the humans would interpret, but now this stuff is interpreting. Dror Proleg, another guy who writes about this, I think this is interesting. Gen AI is shifting work from point and click to describe and done. Have you noticed that? When I use the tools, I no longer have to check boxes and hit enter and wait for the thing to come out. I can actually talk to the tool and it gives me the answer. So this is going to move to the background. It's possible that the technology is going to move to the background. We'll start Frankly, it's a little scary because I start interacting. I've been thanking Claude. Thank you for your answer. Really? There's nobody on the other end, right? But as I said, the complexity is moving behind the scenes. You might have heard of vibe coding. Now you can ask it to develop an app or code to do something for you, and it'll do it. But what this does mean is that those that are best at articulating the question are the ones that have the most power for the tool. So those are some kind of philosophical aspects on this AI thing. For those of you who have not seen it in action, I just have a brief demonstration. For those of you who are using this will seem rudimentary, but let me demonstrate it. This is a listing for a brownfield site. Keith, I use this in Chicago. It's a listing for a brownfield site outside of London. It's from Savills. It's got the map and the demographics and the pictures and the access. It's got all the typical data. Any of you on the brokerage side, you would put something together like this. So I went to Claude and I gave it 5 commands. Please underwrite the property, be detailed, and give me an IRR for risk. I gave it the risk-free interest rate, what I could borrow at, what I want the LTV for. I want to exit after 10 years, and then tell me what the cap rate should be, and make your own market assumptions, but please state them clearly. So I'm asking it. Now imagine that this tool could potentially be accessing data in your enterprise, but I'm also asking it some questions about outside market forces. So we don't have a lot of time to talk about, but all I'll say is don't take your proprietary data and dump it into Claude or ChatGPT. It's out in the world, it's out in the wild. Please do not do that. But I'll give you, this is a kind of benign example. So here's what happens. I do a quick copy paste with that question. This is what Claude looks like. And it's Sonnet 4. This is an old version. This is the free version, by the way. And then I upload that PDF. That's all I do. and I hit enter. And you'll see what's going to happen. It's going to think a little bit, states the question that I asked, but watch how fast it starts to generate information. Executive summary, property overview, market assumptions, market data analysis, development assumptions. It gives me the unit mix. 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms, gross development cost, construction costs, we know how hard that is, financial analysis, development price, return on investment. I mean, this is, there's the IRR, so, and then a risk analysis. So just, how many of you have analysts in your office? Yeah, right. By the way, you know what turns 44 years old this year? Anybody know? The spreadsheet. Right? VisiCalc, developed in Kendall Square. A Harvard guy, an MIT guy, 44 years ago. Excel is turning 40 years old this year. So this is pretty remarkable to be able to put this in. And again, this is a rudimentary example. Is anybody using this but at a kind of professional level that, you know, this would be embarrassing for me to show this to you. But who's using this in the office? Maybe somebody from the Capitol side? Yeah. Yeah, well, or you know, so this is for those of you who had, find them and ask them. This stuff is like witchcraft. It's crazy. Now, would you stake your career on this answer? No, because it lies. So you have to be really careful. You know, we're not at a point where but remember, the first people who used Excel, they were always doing manual backup, you know, running parallel systems because I don't trust it. Does anybody run backup systems or parallel systems on Excel today? We now just assume that it's right. So this is a great example that I thought I would show for those of you who have not seen it. So at a macro level, what does this mean for the global workforce? Well, there's some estimates, and these are all estimates from a variety of sources, Goldman Sachs, the World Economic Forum, even MIT. 18% of the global workforce could be automated. Now that's automated, that's not displaced, that's somewhat automated. And you would argue these models, this is automation. We define automation as this, not necessarily something with a robot going up and down. It may cause a loss of 83 million jobs, but a gain of 69 million jobs. Those numbers, as you know, are always changing. Some folks at MIT are saying only 5% of the jobs will be replaced by heavily assisted AI. But it could, there's an upside to this. It could increase global GDP by 7%, according to Goldman Sachs. Could be 15%, could be 100%, if you listen to Sam Altman, right? But there's some truth to that. But just remember, AI doesn't see anything outside of the model. It's not human. And Professor Fletcher at Ohio State talks about the 4 primal human powers: intuition, imagination, emotion, and common sense. And there are probably a couple more in there too, that we know that are kind of unique to human beings. It's unlikely, maybe in our lifetime, that these systems will gather that. You know, we may see Hal. Hal had an opinion about life right, or death. But anyway, so that's important to keep in mind. This I thought was useful. This is also from Goldman Sachs. This just breaks down different types of jobs, different categories, and it's hard to read it. You can look at it later. The dark blue is 0 to 10% automation, estimated. The medium blue is 10 to 49%, and the gray is 50% or more of likely replacement. So, and these are a bunch of different industry sectors. Any lawyers in the room? Excellent. By the way, I'm a lawyer too. So legal, they're saying, maybe a third of the jobs will go away, except if you read the Wall Street Journal a couple of days ago, the new going rate for the hotshot lawyers is up to $6,000 an hour. So remember, the hotshot's getting hotter, but they're also talking about replacing the associates. So anyway, that's law. Office and admin, that's an obvious one. Architectural and engineering, there's a little kind of a gray spot up there. Architects in the room? Yeah, you've been through this before, right? There was BIM and there's Autodesk and all this stuff, and I don't know how it's going to turn out. Are you using what you would call kind of new AI yet? Not really. Yeah, we still need the humans in the architecture. Otherwise, everything's going to look the same. It'll be plain vanilla and awful. So anyway, by the way, that was an opinion. Okay, so you can look at this more closely. Then we're going to talk about this later, but what does this mean for cities and real estate and what we build and where we build and how we build it? Dror Prolog asks, is agglomeration under pressure? And we'll talk about this on the panel later. If this AI makes everybody knowledgeable and makes knowledge abundant, and we know from remote work that you don't have to be in the city center anymore, in the CBD, you can kind of live anywhere. What does that mean? Does that mean cities are going to spread out? Does it mean they're going to continue to aggregate, but for different reasons? Does it mean that other nodes of innovation and knowledge and invention are going to pop up? And we'll talk about that on the panel later. But one thing that Dominic Endicott, who will be here, talks about, that if the technology is table stakes and people can live anywhere, as a developer, what becomes really, really important? Place. Place becomes really important. And when I look at Portland, I love coming to Portland. It is so cool. It's got the historic architecture, it's got the water, it's got all of these elements. And so does Portland become an emerging, I mean, look, it's not like you've already emerged, but even more emergent as a place where a young startup company would want to come locate. All of the elements that are here, and hey, I don't have to be in New York, and the cost of living is a fraction of it. So we'll talk about that on the panel later. Take a look at some of the Brookings research. They tried to identify these different types of AI metro areas. And the usual suspects, you can see the dark blue is the Bay Area. The light blue is kind of the East Coast corridor. And then some in Texas. Chicago's got a blip there, a little bit in Florida, Atlanta. But there will be these emerging areas. Notice that it's not just the usual suspects. It's not just the gateway cities. It's going to be other cities like Portland that tell a compelling story and have a lot of attractive lifestyle elements, because it's no longer about where the technology will work, because it will work everywhere. And lastly, why is AI ideally suited for real estate? Well, we know that it's fundamentally data-driven. We are a data industry. We have an immense amount of data. We've been gathering it because somebody told us, and storage got cheap. So we've got all this siloed data, but we haven't really figured out what to do with it. Now we can get at it with the AI, and I'll give you some examples. Lots of repetitive processes, but at the same time, it's also very bespoke. As a developer, I think everything we build, we like to think we're standardizing. Everything we build is bespoke. This is not like building automobiles. So, excuse me, that sounds worse than it is. How many of you had the cold of 2026? Yeah, okay. How many of you kept the cough for 3 weeks after? Yeah, okay. Anyway, I apologize for that. I might have to grab a water. And then this AI's ability to rapidly process and interpret, and it will impact all areas of real estate. So one way, I'll pause there for a moment. That was a lot of material. Again, we're going to give you the slides. When we explore these topics, we like to look at two things, two angles on this. One is, how does it impact the assets? What's it going to do about maybe you could argue, what our customers want us to build? And how do we need to respond as real estate developers? And then we'll talk a little bit about, how does our enterprise get impacted? So AI is impacting what our clients are going to need, but it's also going to impact how we run our business. And I'll cover that in kind of 2 chapters. So the first one is, I want to start with a demonstration. Okay, so has anybody seen this? This is Sora. This is the generative AI tool called Sora. And I put in a stylish young woman dressed in designer clothes, walks down a street in, I think I said Shibuya, which is in Tokyo. It's nighttime. It has rained. The streets are wet. And this is what it generated. Pretty amazing, right? I have a friend in the media business. He said that would have taken me 50 people and probably a week to do, and I did it in about 30 minutes. So what does that mean? Well, it means a lot if you're in the media business, right? Means a lot of you are in the media business. We read about that. That's part of what the strike was about. But also, if you're Tyler Perry and you see that demonstration while you're in the middle of negotiating an $800 million studio in suburban Atlanta, you actually put a hold on the studio in suburban Atlanta. Now, I think they went ahead and built it, but part of it, but at a much smaller scale. You may know better than I. But that matters. That's about Tyler Perry saying, I guess I don't need as much real estate as I thought I needed. So, so that's why I like to start with that example. So, let me go through a couple of asset types. First, we can talk about data centers. I don't want to spend too much time on data centers because data centers hog all the news. And also I know that Maine has, 7 or 8 legacy data centers. You haven't had any built in the last 5 years. You know why. I know it's because of energy and maybe geographic location, but nonetheless, there could be some follow-on effects, which is why I wanted to bring up data centers. And also it's kind of interesting just to see the scale at which this is happening. So what has happened is that Moore's Law is stalled. The computing demand, everybody know Moore's Law? Moore's Law is about, the efficiency and the productivity of chips is an upward slope, and they double in capability every X number of years. That's a loose definition of Moore's Law. What has happened, though, is that the demand for processing capability has gone like this, while Moore's Law has gone like this, which means you have to get more chips. So that's really what's going on. We need a lot more chips and a lot more buildings to hold those chips because the chips go in the racks and allow me to do that Sora thing, which I'm sure used immense amounts of data and energy. Global demand for data center could be 3 times what it is now by 2030. That's, it's just a ridiculous, you've seen all the numbers. We need twice the capacity that has been built since 2020. We need twice the capacity than what was built over the last 5 years, but we need it in a quarter of the time. Okay, so if you're anybody here in the data center business, are you building data centers, anybody? I didn't think we'd get a hand because it's, if I was in Virginia, half the audience would put their hand up. So that's data centers. But the CapEx on data centers, $1.7 trillion possibly. McKinsey says, I like this phrase, code to concrete. Meta last year spent more on capital projects than R&D at a company that spends billions of dollars on R&D. So what does that mean? Here's an interesting chart. This big whopping CapEx hyperscaler number at 600 billion, that is only Microsoft, Meta, Alphabet, and Amazon. That's how you get to $1 trillion, because the 4 big ones take down 600 billion of it. So what does that mean for us? Well, it's crowding out capital. It's possible that it's going to crowd out capital. Those of you who are in the lending business and capital markets, you might understand how this would happen, that when this immense amount of money goes to this product, it's starting to show up in certain markets where it's hard to get other projects funded. Let's talk about the power demand. The power demand will increase significantly. You've read about this. Here's a chart on power demand. United States is the dark blue purple one. So 2025 is in the middle, 2030, just 5 years. You can see how that segment doubles the amount of power that's required, but also China needs it. The rest of the world needs it, Europe. So there's this huge power demand, and we know that's going to be a problem. What this means is that we need innovation in the grid. So we're seeing this real estate and infrastructure and energy is starting to become, it's no longer just about the multifamily building or the office building, because you really also have to take into account power, whether you're a data center or not, but especially if you're a data center. So I think this changes how we think about real estate, how we define certain parts of real estate. It's getting very interesting. Also there's talk about, have you heard this term, BYOP? Have you heard it? Bring your own power? Right? So there's pressure, as you've read from Washington. There's also pressure, local pressure, because the projects are not getting approved, that if you want to build a data center, you need to bring your own power. Is that nuclear? Is that, well, right now it's natural gas turbines, maybe. So there's this whole conversation about bring your own power. But from a resiliency and a sustainability, from a resiliency standpoint, given, we know storms here, right, in New England, maybe we should be thinking about this. Wouldn't it be great if we found an inexpensive way to have on-site power generation? So as developers, we have this kind of turnkey project. You don't have to worry about whether you can get power or not, or whether the deal with Power Quebec is going to get monkeyed with. So, I list 3 examples here. One is Bedrock Energy. They do neighborhood and micro power systems. Station A is an MIT company. They'll help commercial buildings do on-site power, whether it's solar or whether it's fuel cells, but they were already moving to this, and now the trend is catching up to them, which is to do this kind of on-site or neighborhood power. This EC3 hub at MIT, this is really cool. It's a little early, but it's really cool. They have reformulated the aggregate that goes into concrete. They've added in carbon black, a carbon black hybrid additive, so that after you pour the concrete, and it cures, it will now store electricity. How cool is that? Battery storage in your poured concrete. That's really cool. And it's this convergence, right? Because who knew concrete, concrete, right? And when I was growing up, concrete was about the most boring part of our industry. But there's a concrete sustainability hub at MIT, of all, no surprise, right? A concrete sustainability hub. But this is what they work on there. So how about that? Poured concrete that stores the power that comes maybe from some other on-site source, so you have this system now that supports itself. I think that's very exciting. I put the IKEA project there just because they do geothermal. They've got, 300 wells of geothermal. Can you do geothermal in Maine? Has anybody done a geothermal project? Yeah, I think it's on commercial or residential? Both, yeah. I think it's, I know it's not easy, it's complicated, it's expensive, but it's like free energy. It's a little like solar. So anyway, so I think we're going to get innovation on this power side, because we can no longer just think about the real estate. Now we're all in the infrastructure and energy business as well. These are a couple of quick examples. Form Energy, these are iron oxide batteries, not nearly as efficient, so they need to be kind of suburban, but it's for baseline storage of power to help with the spikes because coal, as we know, is kind of the baseline part of the fleet, and as coal gets eliminated, you have to come up with some other kind of baseline. So Form Energy, MIT company. They aren't all MIT companies, but I have to give a shout out. And then this one in Yorkshire, this is a battery. Do you have any battery farms here? Has anybody done a battery farm project yet? I think that's pretty cool. There's sort of like outdoor industrial, but it's really batteries. So, or self-storage, but it's really batteries. And then on the brownfields that we talked about in Chicago, Keith, these are projects on brownfield sites. And Maine has a few brownfield sites probably. Okay. Somebody laughed out there. I was just asking. It was an innocent question. Every state has them. But anyway, that's a potential good use for these brownfield sites. So lastly, these data centers do encourage innovation around all of these areas that I've talked about. And one interesting approach is we all know that office in certain cities is struggling. Can we put data centers in offices? That's kind of interesting. If it's the right kind of office, if it had the right architectural structure, access to water, access to power, and you've got lots of inexpensive assets in the office sector in certain cities. These are 2, one in Portland and one in Los Angeles. So maybe we convert office buildings. And then also there's talk about putting data centers on the moon. Elon. So, but I will, just a few more comments on data center. I didn't want to go this far into them, but I think it could kind of ricochet into the rest of the industry. Virginia, Georgia, Missouri, and I just heard Maine putting this moratorium on data centers, just because it is pretty extreme. If any of you have driven around suburban Virginia, it's nuts. So I think the brakes are being put on. They are also, not only are they pushing capital, but they're also drawing materials and labor. So what happens if that sucks all the labor, because we know we've got a labor shortage, sucks all the labor, sucks all the material, how do I build my multifamily? Because I can't, the data center's sucking all that away. So, and then I mentioned this idea of powered land is now at a premium. If you get the deal, part of your underwriting and part of your permitting is power, but if you arrive with powered land, that powered land is certainly more valuable. Okay, let's move on to office. Enough on data centers. That was a lot. We see it every day. Okay, office. The impact of AI. Dow Chemical said they're replacing 4,500 positions with AI. IBM is replacing 7,800. IKEA replaced their call centers with a chatbot. These numbers look bad, but as I said, the research is showing that at the same time we're hiring a bunch of other people. The companies are Amazon, they lay 10,000 off here and then they hire 5,000 over here. Now it's the mismatch in the capabilities and training and skills might be a problem. The verdict is still out on the kind of the net change. I will say about co-working. Remember when co-working was dead? Everybody knows WeWork, right? All the drama around WeWork and the nonsense that went on there. But what has happened is that co-working is back, and actually, it's bigger than it was before COVID, bigger than it was before WeWork, or during WeWork. This is part of this flexibility. We refer to it as real estate fracking on my team, from my colleague, Professor Dennis Frenchman. The idea is like oil and gas fracking, the idea that you can take the asset and break it into smaller pieces and then reconfigure it in higher value combinations. That's what co-working is. Regardless of the nonsense around WeWork, they fundamentally changed how we think about space. This is space as a service, space on demand, optimized space. It gets a lot more use. So I just thought this data was interesting on how co-working is back. And that allows companies flexibility. And also, by the way, it's not startup founders. It's not ones and twos and threes. It's major global companies using it as part of their global occupier strategy. Those of you who are on the brokerage side that have corporate clients, you know what they're asking for. So, but that'll be accelerated by AI. Residential. How does AI apply to residential? Well, better locational decisions, and we'll talk about that. I'll give you some examples in a moment. But now let's come back to what AI does. All these immense amounts of data, and then it processes it, and then it gives us ideas and guides us on what's really going on. So you can make better locational decisions because you'll understand the market better, public and private data. Design, on the design side, design's going to get faster. We're going to be able to prototype a lot faster. We still need the humans, but it's going to get a lot faster. It already is getting faster. More efficient project delivery, smarter homes. The integration, homes are going to get smarter. Lots of change in interaction and engagement with customers, better energy management, and automated property management. So imagine now, and you look at Avalon Bay. Avalon Bay's taking, do we have any Avalon Bay assets up here? Maybe not. Anyway, Avalon Bay, second, third, fourth largest multifamily operator in the country. They potentially will have a control room that will manage 6 properties, 8 properties, 10 properties, 12 properties, and do all the property management from one location. And add robots to it. We'll talk about robots in a moment. But it's possible that this will be scalable in a way that was never possible before. Okay, so that's residential. Retail. Retail developers here? Owners? Developers, a few of them, right? Retail's getting interesting. I would say retail has been hip to data and analytics for a long time, maybe longer than the rest of the industry. Again, better locational decisions, smart stores. Think about, this comes back to architecture a little bit, but think about optimizing the layout to maximize the income. We'd already been doing that, but now the AI does it a lot faster. It'll use a lot more data and give us a lot more, more accurate guidance. Inventory control, that's going to get even better. Better forecasting. Virtual assistants 24/7 with these chatbots. Same thing with leasing an apartment. You can call anytime and lease an apartment, and it's really a chatbot you're talking to or communicating with. Visual product curation, so now there's image recognition, and enhanced security. So retail is changing. Retail is changing. Industrial and warehouse. Warehouse developers? Do we have a few? Any warehouse developers here? So industrial and warehouse, smart warehousing, similar to the retail. There's space optimization. The space, how we lay things out and how we plan them and how we organize them is going to get much more sophisticated, and it's going to get much faster and, in theory, much more profitable. NVIDIA is working with BMW. They increased efficiency in a factory down south 30%. The question is, does it reduce the amount of manufacturing space needed? I don't know. Some people think so. SoftBank wants to spend $1 trillion on AI robot industrial parks. Well, that's what that looks like. That's what that looks like. It's potentially a manufacturing facility that has no humans, and it has all robots. And you might think this is science fiction, but if any of you watched 60 Minutes a couple of weeks ago, see, Mark, now I did it. Here we go. Anybody see this spot on Boston Dynamics on 60 Minutes? It's pretty cool. So you might remember this thing called Spot, which looked like a dog, and it got a lot of coverage. A company called Boston Dynamics. Well, this is the new version. It's a little like Terminator. You know, it's a little scary, but you've read about the rise of the humanoid robotics, the humanoid robots. And this wasn't possible before. There have been breakthroughs in the hardware, but it's really that the AI is making them able to be responsive to their environment. And in fact, this one can make decisions. It's not, you know, it used to be that robots, you would program them and they would do one thing over and over and over and over again. Now they are more responsive. They can understand with machine vision, they can adapt. And you know how they train these? It's pretty cool. They take a human and put a bunch of sensors on, and the human does it, and you generate a whole bunch of data, immense amounts of data. The human does it, and then they feed it to the robot, and the robot comes out and does it exactly like the human did it. But then that human does the different versions. They drop a part and pick it up. They do it to the right. They do it to the left. Now the robot can do all that. So it's not out of the question we would have those kinds of factories that look like that. Okay, let's talk about enterprise. What's it mean for us and how we, on a day-to-day basis, kind of run our business? I like to start from the VC standpoint. Do we have any venture capitalists here? Any VCs? I'm the only one. Okay. Venture capital, which you probably heard about, it's a capital source that tends to fund really young companies. And VC funding into AI-related companies, not just real estate, has increased. Actually, this number's low. It says 100 billion, but if you really take a look at all the money that's going to NVIDIA, depends on how you define it. Let's call it billions and billions. And it's expected to be $1 trillion over the next 5 years. And you may have heard these terms prop tech, or construction tech, or climate tech, or fintech. All of these different techs are starting to converge. And we've been following the real estate tech category for about 15 years, and even before it was called prop tech. And they've all been converging. So if you're getting pitched by a startup founder who wants you to try out something, you're engaging with either the prop tech sector or the construction tech or any one of these techs. And often they do a little bit of both. So that continues to provide. My colleague and friend Brad Greiwe had a big fund called Fifth Wall. He says that this is where the R&D comes for the real estate industry, because we really don't do R&D as an industry. But this is, the VCs are funding all of these new startups, and I'm going to share some of them with you. It's a big number. At the peak in 2021, curiously during COVID, it was $70 billion. But even last year, even though things have cooled a little bit, it was $40 billion roughly. And that's the amount of money that's going into it. Although you'll notice that the number of deals has been decreasing while the dollars have been remaining steady, if not going up a little bit, means that they're spending more money on fewer companies for what it matters. Just to tell you where the funding comes from, it comes from these big VC funds. They are global. I mentioned Fifth Wall. MIT has 3 of them. I'm the general partner for one of them. And if you'd like to learn about VC, glad to talk to you about it later. One question that does come up is, where does their money come from? And it comes from big strategic partners. Many of these will look familiar to you: JLL, CBRE, Nuveen I saw downstairs. Colliers is downstairs as well. I don't have it on the list. But this is a global thing. This is where the money comes from. And this is how we fund these venture capital companies. So let me this is how we fund these young startup companies. So let me give you some examples. I would encourage you to take a look at these, because they may be useful to you. So on the locational side, there's one called Statebook, there's one called Hello Data. Growth Factor is a retail solution. Spatial. Has anybody seen these or used any of them? Just curious. Take a look at them, they're really neat. Spatial is not really a real estate company. They actually monitor social media. it's not really a real estate data company. They monitor social media to understand trends. So if you're in the retail business or if you're in the office business and you kind of want to know what's going on in your neighborhood, or if you have an appealing project, or if you have an appealing neighborhood, you can find out what are they saying on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of the usual suspects. So that's a really, that's a great one, and they do different sectors. On the environmental side, Lightbox, which acquired EDR. Those of you who do environmental work, and the lawyers here who do environmental work, you probably work with EDR. Another one called Alpha Geo, which is a company that we worked with. I'm an advisor to them. This is to model climate risk and understand what the future might look like. And in a place like Maine, you've got a lot of coastline. That might be an interesting inquiry, but also inland. You know, we have other concerns. It's not just the coast that's at risk. As we know, things are changing. You can argue about why or who's at fault or who was responsible, but things are changing, and it would be good as real estate people to be able to model this risk and understand, kind of anticipate what is our risk about what we build and where we build and how we build it. So, so that's on the environmental side. On permitting, we all have been through permitting. We know how painful that can be. Some great solutions. Has anybody looked at the National Zoning Atlas? National Zoning Atlas? Anybody else? Yeah, pretty cool. I forget, her name is Sarah Brannan. Sarah Brannan at Princeton maybe? Anyway, they're trying to digitize the entire US zoning code. All available in one place. I mean, look, doing that in New York City would be a nightmare, let alone the entire country. But a great resource. I'd be curious to know, just, you know, put in Maine and see what they have. That might be useful to you. Rezone, they follow community meetings and send you a message when something changed at a meeting that you didn't know about. That's pretty cool. And they scrape and they assemble data and they access public data and private data. Again, this is kind of, excuse me, kind of business intelligence. Artifacts AI is sort of like the Palantir for real estate. Interesting company. So permitting is going to change. Development, we've got a lot of developers in the room. So on the development side, and there are many examples, but I list some of these are sort of, these all are sort of rapid prototyping tools. You guys use TestFit in the office? Yeah, is that kind of standard in the industry now? Sort of. So this is to rapid prototype and speed up the development process. I'll show you. This one's Paraffin. This is an MIT founder. This is a rapid prototyping only for hotels. Those of you who do hotels, you may have already come across them because they work with all the major brands. And this is to rapid prototype hotels. And so these are 6 sites in downtown Chicago. And it's just quickly generating key count, parking, budget, and cap rate. And it's kind of a filtering mechanism. It's not necessarily to make your career decision on or to write a check on, but it gives me a list of 100 different prototypes on 6 different sites. And as a developer, would allow me to take a look at where are the opportunities that would require further due diligence. On the TestFit side, TestFit is really to take a look at site design, site optimization, and what you'll see here is increasing the amount of green space, shrinking the building, increasing the building, changing the parking, this dynamic way to look at development, even in the early stages, so that you don't design it once and then take it back, design it a second time, take it back, design it a third time. You can now do this in real time, again, to kind of get the conversation started. So this is only possible because of, it was possible before, but it's getting really powerful now. And when they link it to the finance part, then that gets even more powerful. Now, you may think that AI for design is science fiction, and it does. It is a little like science fiction. I put this into Midjourney. I said, futuristic towers, utopian technology, symbiotic with nature, and bioluminescent material. I was trying to trick it. Bioluminescent material. And this is what we got. So it's a little crazy. They would build this in Dubai. They would build this in Dubai, but not anywhere else in the world. But at the same time, so you might think, you know, this is a fun, it's a cool toy, but Zaha Hadid did this in Azerbaijan. This was designed by AI. And so you need to make sure it's buildable. Just remember, it might look good, but the question is it buildable? This is where construction tech starts getting together with the design, starts getting together with the other players. But the AI allows you to do that now. All this data can come together so that you can decide if the thing's even buildable. Property management. Property managers, everybody's a property manager, right? Lots of them in the room, right? How's that saying? When the economy's really bad, developers become property managers? Yeah. So we're all property managers. These are 4 AI-first property management platforms that I would encourage you to take a look at. You'll hear the term horizontal AI, and you'll hear the term vertical AI. Horizontal AI is like outcome. They will touch any part of the enterprise and help you build AI assistance, will help you access different parts of the enterprise. It's a horizontal solution. Kaltana, on the other end, is vertical. They only do RFPs and purchasing, but they do it at all levels. They do the whole purchasing ecosystem, very narrow horizontally, whereas outcome is a platform vertically. And then some other interesting ones in between. Keyway and Domos are multifamily solutions. So you might take a look at those. I find them very interesting. All 4 of them are young companies, which means they're very AI first. You'll see a fair number of legacy companies now bolting the AI on, which is fine. You just need to see if it actually works or not. But that's what the legacy companies are doing, especially, you might hear the term SaaS, because it's under pressure. The legacy companies are under pressure. The MRIs, the Yardis, the CoStars are all under pressure because these young companies are coming out with something that's faster and cheaper. Excuse me. Oh, so one other thing on property management. I just thought, we're in Maine. Anybody in the timber business here? I mean, this is timber country up here, right? So I just thought I wanted to show you something that's pretty cool. And then there's a real estate version of this that I'll tell you about. So this is a company called Gaia. They have backpack-mounted thermal and LiDAR sensors. They walk through timber assets, and they're able to record what kind of tree, how tall it is, whether it's healthy, how thick it is. They also record the underbrush for forest fire reasons. And they get all of this in a way, again, we never could have gathered or processed this information before. So Gaia does that for timberland, and they've got a gazillion acres under management. But there's another company called Lamar AI that does MRI scans of buildings. Now, you've heard of these companies. They're a drone company, and they'll scan the building, and they'll give you a sense of what's happening in the building. What's unique about Lamar is that they do the operating system. They're agnostic to the drones, but they do the operating system to be able to tell you where the energy penetrations are, where the water penetrations are. They can map that out and give you a 3D rendering, almost like a digital twin of the building. But they can also recommend what the solution is, what the repair is, what the payback is, the cost-benefit analysis. So this is pretty cool to be able to scan existing buildings like an MRI, the way we go get an MRI, or hopefully we don't have to, and then understand the health of the building and how to repair it. And that adds asset value back to the building. So a couple of examples there using machine learning, deep AI, and then I'll give you this example.
Hi, I'm Elise, a leasing agent for Green Hill Apartments. How may I assist you today?
Hi, I was wondering if you had any 2 bedrooms available and if dogs are allowed.
Yes, we have a 2-bedroom available. Our building is pet-friendly and allows dogs under 40 pounds. Would you like to schedule a tour to see the apartment?
Oh, great. Is there any fee to apply? Do you require some sort of security deposit?
For our 2-bedroom apartments, we require a security deposit of $1,000. Our application fee is $30 per applicant when you submit the...
Does that include children?
Alex is real.
No,
Elise is
application
a
fees are
chatbot.
not required for children under 18. Would you like to schedule a tour to see the apartment?
Yeah, sounds good.
What time works for you? We have 45-minute slots starting at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Do you have availability at 11 a.m.?
I'm sorry, but the 11 a.m. slot is already taken. We have availability at 11:15 a.m. or 11:30 a.m. Which would you prefer?
Perfect, I can do 11:15 a.m.
Great. I have scheduled you for an in-person tour at 11:15 a.m. You will receive a text confirmation shortly. Is there anything else I can help you with?
No, I'm good now. Thanks for all your help.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Okay, so any Elise users here, those of you who have multifamily? Yeah, a couple of Elise. How has it been? Has it been good? Yeah, it's getting better. This is an old version. Again, an MIT company, sorry. It's just, and the woman founder is just a remarkable founder. I don't know if you've met her. She's great. She lectures in my class. So this is a kind of basic version of a chatbot. They're going to get a lot more human-like, and but this just gives you a sense. And I think the data that they gave us was they increased their conversion rate by 40%, or apartment building. Has your conversion rate improved? Yeah, it has. And maybe your cost of labor has gone down? Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So we have experts here. If you're interested in this, talk to them. But these chatbots, the whole Appfolio has one. There are a whole bunch of them out there, but this was pretty basic before the LLMs came on the scene and before the generative AI, and now they're just getting really capable. Because what they're doing is they're able to go in to the data at the company and answer the questions at 3 o'clock in the morning when somebody's calling from overseas to get an apartment because they've got to move to New York, and you have almost a human on the other end of the line. So this is an example of these the voice recognition and all of that. I have one other example on the construction side, which brings a number of these other technologies together.
Hey tool,
Hey Sergey, what can I help you?
4th floor, room number 2, Anderson Construction. Head joint thickness, it's over 20 millimeters. Added to issue list.
Issue added. Do you want to take a picture of this defect?
Yes.
Interface opened. Picture added.
Okay, so this is the merger of the machine vision. There's this engagement with this chatbot. There's the text generation. There's the integration also with the Elise. There's this integration with the calendar and the planning. And then watch what happens here.
We need to repaint ceiling in room number 3. Added to punch list for drywall wise. With due date April 26.
Done.
Actually, I want to talk with their project manager. Schedule a meeting for this Friday.
Is 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. okay for you?
Yes.
Schedule set and sent it to DrywallWise Project Manager.
Thank you, Mark 2.
So you can see this integration with our systems. Just imagine what, and also this is an older version. This company called i2 got acquired. But just imagine what is now going to be possible as a result of this integration. So it's really amazing, and as I said, sometimes a little like witchcraft. Lastly, so this one was a camera with a person. You've heard about augmented reality glasses. You know that Meta has sold 7 million of them already. I actually have mine in my briefcase. I was going to bring them up. And we'll have augmentation on the insides of our glasses. You can argue whether that's a good thing or not, but it's a little like the heads-up display on your car. You'll be able to get information in your glasses. So what might that look like? Well, certainly it's going to look better than those glasses, but I just, this was a clip that I grabbed. I forget the name of the company, but what if we can walk around and do punch, and then we can tap on things and we can find out that it wasn't built to plan. Presumably it'll send a message. So just that having this capability to be able to interact with the built environment at the digital level through an augmented device, I think is pretty great. So, okay, we covered a lot of material today. A lot of ground. Thank you for your patience and your attention and your interest in this. What are the key takeaways? Well, there are a lot of key takeaways. The first one, just to say that AI is going to continue to impact all areas. I'm not so sure, there's a lot of hand-wringing over, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and my job's gone, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and my business is going to be gone. We know that technology does not roll out like that. There may be isolated incidences, you see the headlines, all the layoffs, but we know that from past technology adoption, it takes time. It is going to be a little messy. Real estate is ideally suited to AI because we're fragmented, we've got a lot of data, we're very hands-on. The physical assets will evolve. I wonder if the kind of house we live in will change. And it happened after COVID. We saw houses now getting offices and kind of AV rooms getting built in. or converted. So the physical spaces will change. There's another great quote about how on-site, this is referring to office, on-site is the new off-site. I don't know if you've heard that, right? Meaning that the on-site experience for your employees, you have to make it like they're going to the off-site in Cancun. Bad example because of what just happened there. But anyway, you have to make the office feel like the off-site in order to get them to the on-site. So that means changing the space, but also the buildings. Humans will engage with real estate in many different ways. We'll all have agents, we'll all have assistants, and we might even have augmented glasses that will allow us to interact with the space in different ways. I did mention that this scarce expertise becomes more abundant. We're all going to get immensely smarter as a result of this. We are going to identify unused, this is kind of a recommendation, identify unused data. Excuse me. I almost got to the end. Identify unused data pools. Where do you have data in your company that you forgot you had or that might have value? You can now start probing that and find out, oh, wait a minute, I've got data here that might have value that I either forgot that I had or didn't have any way to access it. And the last thing I would say is just beware the AI hype, as we always should. Remember blockchain, remember driverless cars, remember the metaverse. Actually, the metaverse is really coming back, to tell you the truth, but in a different way. So just, beware the AI hype that it solves everything, because it really doesn't. So ask a lot of questions and test it for yourself. If you would like to get the slide, should we do this now, or do you have a QR?
You can do it now, or there's a QR code in the program that they picked up.
There's a QR code in the program. But if you would like to grab the slides, you can go ahead and grab the QR code. And Shelley,
Yeah.
I'm even wrapping a little bit early. Can I take a question or two?
Yes.
Okay. We weren't going to do Q&A because I'm around today, but does anybody have any burning questions? Or if you want to share an example, and feel free to share an example that doesn't align with what I just said. My students do it all the time. Any thoughts on this? Yes, sir, back here. Maybe we can get you a mic. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't mean to spring this on you. Thank you.
I heard that Silicon Valley is kind of moving more towards smaller language models that are more kind of specialized in a particular thing. Like there could be a real estate development, small SLM.
Yeah, great point. You'll hear the distinction between large language models and small language models. The large language models take immense amounts of power, all of these resources, huge data, hyperscalers, all this stuff. But what is happening, and some of these startups have discovered this that I shared with you, that your companies have immense amounts of data of your own. And what's good is you can do these small language models that are custom, that are firewalled from the outside world, and you can learn a lot from the data you already have in the company. And maybe you weave in some outside market data or whatever kind of outside data. But you do that, the IT department is going to insist on doing it that way. But this is a very good point that you don't have to boil the ocean. It's really important not to try to boil the ocean. Or as the other analogy is, why use a hammer when a fly swatter was sufficient, right? So great point on this large language model, small language model. Thank you. Another question over here.
Do you see any hype with the projected demand of data centers?
Hype with projected demand of data centers. I think so, but it's hard to tell. And a lot of economists. Look, I'm not an economist, and I went to law school, so I'd never have to do math again. But the economists are talking about, are we oversold on the data centers? But I don't know. If this is such a fundamental change to how the world operates, maybe we aren't. We will find out. I'll share 2 bits of anecdotal information, though, that has some people asking the question. The first is one of our supporters at the Center for Real Estate who manages probably $100 billion in assets globally. I won't tell you who it is, but they have stayed away from data centers. They're very concerned that this is a single-use, very expensive asset. Single-use, very expensive asset. And they're genuinely worried that maybe it gets oversold. Maybe we get out over our skis on it. What happens if quantum computing has breakthroughs and suddenly you don't need a gazillion chips, you only need 1 million chips to do 10 times more computing power? There are always these breakthroughs coming with the chip companies. So I think we do have to be, I mean, look at Warehouse. Warehouse got oversold, not quite as much. Anybody know what the vacancy rate is for life sciences in Cambridge, Boston, Cambridge? 30%. 30%. And deals that never got built are being sold off at 25% of the former transaction price. So very good point. Data centers could be a concern. Second anecdotal bit from, and imagine this, and this will impact all of you potentially. One of the largest insurers in the world, I had a conversation with a guy who was pretty high up there, who was a friend of ours. He said, Steve, I just got contacted by one of our clients, says, hey, we want to do the paperwork on this new hyperscale center that we're building. And he said, I can't insure it. There's not enough capacity in the insurance markets. Wow. You know, we're talking about energy, not being able to get the energy for your building. What about insurance? What happens when these very expensive $1 trillion of data centers get built and now we can't get insurance on our multifamily buildings? So there's a lot to unpack around this that's not just about the obvious. I found that really interesting. Anybody from the insurance carriers here? We probably got some insurance people here. Have you experienced that discussion yet or not? Not yet. Now maybe it's an isolated incident, but it does point, and they deal with Lloyd's, they deal with all of the reinsurers, and he said, Steve, it's going to be a real problem. If we build all of it, it's going to be a problem. So anyway, where are we? Oh, we have one more minute?
Anybody else?
We got one back here. 3 questions from the center, which has me concerned about those out there. Were you with me? I know, it's a bit of a distance. I hope you were with me. Oh, you had your own screen, that's why. You had your own screen. Yes, quick question.
So I went to a cost estimating summit for all of our cost estimators here. And we had a just AI gentleman show us his systems and how they work. And so they gave us an exercise on what's it going to cost to build a garage in your neighborhood? And we wrote the number down. And then they asked AI the question. And it provided a 5-page report and a bill of lading, all the materials. And then it gave you a rough order of magnitude. Now, can you imagine being the most successful real estate broker in Maine and having that tool and having a client who has money and has choices? And there you are standing down on Black Point with a $4 million sale, and they go, gee, what do you think it would cost to add a garage? And about 13 seconds later, you can say, at your house, oh, probably $110,000. I mean, that's a powerful tool for a broker, huh?
Yeah. It's pretty great. And I like your optimism, because what you didn't say was, I'm a cost estimator and I'm screwed. Right. So I like your optimism. At MIT, we are eternal optimists, but this is an example that, you know, maybe it isn't the sexiest example, maybe because the media covers all the sexy examples, but there's just basic blocking and tackling. But I like these stories that I'm going to use this tool. By the way, I'm also a broker, so I understand, and I have spoken to brokers for the last 15 years about these waves of technology, and you know, they always stand up and say, hey, Steve, does this mean I'm out of a job? And everybody laughs. And I say, no, we have more brokers now than we had before. You're just going to be the most amazing broker than you were before because of this technology. So thank you for sharing that example. And for those of you who have other examples, I love to hear them. I'll take them back to my team. With that, I'll say thank you to Shelley. And also, where's Elizabeth? I'll turn it over to Elizabeth. Thank you. I'll be around later. Thank you. Thank you.